Hi, my name is Brenda, and I'm the HR manager here at Inclusion First.
And I'm Jamie, and I'm the manager of operations here at Inclusion First. And thank you for applying for the direct support professional position.
Thank you for having me in today.
Great. Did you have any problems finding the office?
I didn't. You guys did a great job with directions. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Good. And then I have a glass of water here for you just in case you need it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. So the purpose of the interview today is just to determine whether your competencies and qualifications are a good match for the role of direct support professional. So to make our best decision, we're just going to spend a little bit of time talking about your career history, sort of going over what you've done in the past and how it relates, as well as ask some questions about some scenarios or events that occurred, and so that you can share a story or an example of that sort of in the recent history, just to sort of find out what you did in that situation. If any time you don't understand a question, please let us know. We'll stop, and you can skip one as well if you need to. We can come back to it at the end. About an hour to conduct the interview, and we're both going to take some turns asking the questions, and we're going to take some detailed notes as well, so please just excuse us while we're writing. Once we're finished, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask some questions about the organization or the position itself at the end. Is there any questions you have before we start?
No, I don't think so. I did bring some notes as well, so I may refer to them as we go through the questions, but thank you for that explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So first is we just like to discuss a little bit about your career history. So start with what's most recent, your most recent position, and give us a sense of any major things you've done and what you're accountable for.
Okay, thank you. So I work for Support Services Unlimited. I've been with the agency about 4 years, and I started in a part-time position and have worked very hard to move into a full-time position, which has been fabulous. So I support 4 young individuals in their home, and one of the best parts about my job has been getting to know each of them as individuals and what their specific support needs are. And that is how our team works very hard every day to make sure those needs and desires and wants and dreams are all met. Because I'm in a full-time position, my main tasks, besides obviously the day-to-day supports with the people, is I work very hard with them to manage finances, and all of that is done with the people we support, so they are very aware of how much money they have and where does it go, and going to the bank and all that great stuff. I order medications, I support them at healthcare appointments, and one of my main roles on the team right now, all 4 individuals do have behavior support plans and work with outside behavior support therapists. So my role is the liaison between our team and those therapists, and making sure that everyone knows and understands those plans and gets the training they need, as well as making sure the people we support know those plans and understand and have an opportunity to be included in the preparation of them. Great. So those are sort of my main tasks.
Can you share with us a little bit about your education?
Yeah, so really exciting. I recently was able to graduate from the DSW apprenticeship program. One of my goals has always been to go back to school to get my DSW education. And so when I was able to move into the full-time position, I also applied and went through the DSW program, apprenticeship program, and recently graduated, which has been great.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're also a sponsor for the DSW apprenticeship program, so that's so great to hear.
It's a wonderful program.
Mm-hmm. Good, excellent. So we're now going to move into the behavior-based portion of the interviews, and the purpose of this is really to give us a sense of what you've done in the past, so the competencies that you've used in the past, and how that you use those in your role to get a determination, because we expect that how you've worked in the past is really how you're going to work in the future. So throughout these questions, it's going to be an example. We want you to speak in the I, so not with we, but more about what you've done, the actions you've taken. So give us an idea of what the scenario is, sort of the context and the situation, the actions you took, what you did, what you thought, how you felt about it, and then the results in the end. Okay. And throughout that, we may interrupt you with some questions, and that's not because your answer is wrong. It's just that we're trying to get the details we need to make sure we have all the information.
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So we will start, and this is the first question is about the core competency of advocacy.
Okay.
So can you tell us about a time when you used an influencing strategy to create a desired impression or impact or to reach a goal?
Sure, that's a great question. one of the young ladies that I currently support is someone who has experienced some challenging behaviors in the past. She does have a behavior support plan, and she works very hard with her team on coping strategies sort of in the day-to-day. More recently, there has been sort of an escalation in what that looks like, and she herself has identified some feelings around trauma and some things that have happened in her past that has caused some concern for the support team, and certainly has led us to realize that we need to reach out into our community and find some resources outside of the day-to-day supports that she gets.
So can you tell us who was involved in that reach out?
Sure. So I did take the lead in that because I have gotten to know this young woman quite well through working with the behavior therapist and working with her plan. The presentation of things that she was experiencing and things she was talking about really was leading back to trauma and things that had happened in her past. So it was obvious to me that the support she needed were outside of the scope of supports we were already offering her. She also was identifying that she wanted a counselor or someone to talk to outside of her support team to deal with and talk about this trauma that she was experiencing.
Can you tell us what happened first?
Sure. So the first thing I did was sit down with this young woman and talk about, again, how she was feeling. She's a very visual person, so we wrote it all down, how she was feeling, the things that she was hoping to get from sort of an outside resource or agency. So we did that together. I also got her consent to be able to speak on her behalf. She wasn't comfortable making the calls to different places for resources, so she did give me the consent to do that, which is super important, that she knows and understands that's what I'm going to be doing on her behalf. So the next morning, I reached out to our local mental health organization. I spoke to the intake coordinator. I explained sort of what was happening with this young woman. I used her words as much as possible, talked about, the situations that we were experiencing and the help that we were hoping to get. Unfortunately, the response I got was that she doesn't qualify because she already has supports in her day-to-day life, and so we would be utilizing a resource that someone else in the community could use when she already has those supports.
And how did that make you feel?
I was definitely frustrated and disappointed. This young woman lives in our community like everybody else and should be able to have access to the same services that you and I would. I did explain a second time what our supports and services look like and sort of our scope of practice and the things that we were feeling this young woman needed, as well as what she was identifying. But unfortunately, the answer was still that she would not qualify for their services because she already had supports.
So then what was the next step?
One of the things I really sat down and thought about was the interactions we'd had in recent weeks with the local police department due to her escalations in the community. So we have, as an agency, developed a really good working relationship with our local police department. So I reached out to the community services officer and had a conversation with him very similar to what I did with mental health. He also, in the beginning, was kind of skeptical as to what his role could be, or the services that he knew of in the community that could help this young woman. So again, I reiterated kind of who our agency is, the supports that we offer, and what this young woman needed. And one of the things I stressed is that without the proper services around this trauma, the escalations would continue and their services would be called upon more often. So in order to help this young woman and make sure that all of the resources were being used appropriately, working together was really the solution we needed.
So then what solution came from this?
So one of the things he suggested, he gave me the phone number of the mobile crisis unit officer, and I contacted her and we had a great conversation. I found it definitely less, I didn't need to share the story in as much detail with her. She did understand where I was coming from, which was great. We had a great conversation, and one of the things she suggested was to pull together a case conference of this young woman's support team, her psychiatrist, and the mobile crisis unit, so that we could put a plan of action together and start talking about what resources would be available. So we had that case conference, and really good suggestions and thoughts were shared at that table about how to best support this young woman.
So ultimately, what was the outcome?
So one of the things that they spoke about, because she identified needing to speak to somebody outside of her support team, was helping her to connect with the mobile crisis line when she needed it. So that night when I was supporting this young woman, I sat down with her. We talked the situation through. She was extremely excited. And so I helped her to program that number into her phone so that when she needed it, she could access it on her own. So we programmed the number in. We talked about some examples of when she might be able to use that line. We even role played a little bit so she felt very comfortable. And just sort of talked through what the purpose of that line was and when she felt she could reach out to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for the great detail that you provided in that question. This is really going to help us make our selection decision. Do you have any questions for us at this time?
One of the questions I did have that I wrote down, if I was to come on board with your agency, what can I sort of expect from like the staff culture, team dynamics, things like that?
Sure. So we've been a long-standing agency. We have a ton of long-standing staff, both full-time and part-time, so our retention is really good. And I think that ultimately comes down to the fact that we really care about our staff. You know, we have a great mental health and wellness program. We do a lot of internal staff development sessions, and we really believe with like promotion from within. So because we dedicate so much time to our staff, I think that that's really why that they stay with us.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Excellent. And before we close this interview, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I think just the last thing I would like to share, I hope that my answers have really shown how person directed that I am. My main goal for coming to work every day, and I know this is said a lot, but it is true, is to make sure that the people we're supporting meet all of their goals and dreams and the things that they want to do. It's super important that we're listening, that we're open to feedback from them, that they're in control of their supports. And I try very hard within all of my support teams to make sure that that thought is always what we're talking about. So if someone brings something forward, how do we make it happen? If there's obstacles, how do we address them? And how do we make sure the person is always included first?
Great. That's awesome. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you. So we are going to take a couple of weeks and review all of our information to make a decision, and we should be in touch with you then.
Thank you. It was great meeting you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.